really long. So
Yeah.
at that time, I don't know if you can remember, they had the 55-mile restriction throughout the state. Yeah, they couldn't go any faster than 55 miles an hour, and it took sometimes it sounded and felt like days before we got to the next place.
Well, like I said, I've got all the itineraries, and right from Glasgow Apollo right up to Wembley.
Yeah.
So I can see exactly how long, and I was quite, I mean, they're not fascinating reading, but when you look through it, like for myself, you can see how long journeys are taking. Like say band on the bus and maybe Gary will fly off and do a bit of something. But I mean, Christ.
I mean, sometimes it was a real pig, because I mean, what we would like to have done was sort of, gone out, do a bit of shopping, a bit of looking around, a bit of sightseeing. None of that, mate.
No.
A lot of that was, on to the next place, off you go, and that was it, basically.
Well, I think Russell sent me some photos of Vancouver, I think. I think maybe you might have had a spare day or two there. I'm sure he said something happened.
Yeah, we did mainly because I don't know if he told you the story. We were supposed to play Vancouver and actually didn't get to play in Vancouver because all the gear got stuck in the Rockies.
Oh God, no, I didn't know that.
Oh, did he not tell you that?
No.
Well, the band flew. The road crew and the equipment went by road. And the gig before that was something like Montreal or some place like that. And to get to Vancouver, which is right the other side of the country, they had to set off a couple of days before we did, and never actually made it.
Oh God!
because of the winter, and because it was apparently they were blowing tires every 10 miles or something. And couldn't get through the Rockies.
Because I got some, Russell sent me some photos of Gary's on, you can see it's all snowed in somewhere.
Yeah,
and he's got Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols is with him. For whatever reason.
No, must admit, don't recall. But anyway, I mean, we actually had a bit of time off in Vancouver, mainly because of that. Problem of the road crew and the trucks trying to get through the Rockies, and couldn't, basically. And I remember getting up because I think I've got some photographs of cable cars and going up into the Rockies and overlooking the city of Vancouver, which was a fantastic place. Fantastic. One of the cleanest cities I've ever seen, apart from German cities. And it was an amazing location because it was a city built right on the seafront with the backdrop of the Rockies behind it. So you could go up the Rockies and look over the city onto the seafront, or from the seafront look up the city and onto the Rockies.
Yeah, amazing.
It's really quite an amazing place. If you ever think of going to Canada, it's one of the fantastic sights to see. Is Vancouver.
I have often thought about it, but just never got round to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, a fantastic sight to see, and also that's one of the few places I think, and that was with Gary. We took a seaplane out.
Oh right.
And we went through all the coves and over many little islands and all that, and saw one or two where the rich live on one or two little coves around the Vancouver Island and city, and amazing. And that's mainly because we had a bit of time on our hands.
Yeah, it's a shame really that you didn't have more really in every place you went to.
We would. I think all of us, and I think we would have had a lot more entertaining photographs if we had more time. But most of it was, I wouldn't say it was on a strict budget kind of situation, but it was on a strict timing situation. Everything was put together, that the tour, the gigs, get into the next gig, finishing one gig, getting the road crew all up and pushed on to the next gig was quite, it was quite strict in a way.
Do you think though? I mean, when you done Saturday Night Live, because the venues were already all booked, weren't they?
Yeah.
Because Saturday Night Live really made Gary, I think, and yourselves.
Yeah, I think also the oddity of Gary and the band had awakened America and people over that side of the Atlantic, including Canada, because it's still, I mean, as influential countries as far as music is concerned, I think ourselves and America are still the major countries in the world.
Yeah, sure.
You know, musically wise. So anything that happens either side of the pond, as such, that's a little bit awakening to a new kind of music or a new kind of feel or a new kind of entity in a way, you know, people respond to it very quickly. And the Americans thought that this is weird and we wanted it over there. Because you must remember that we're still one of the few bands that went over there and headlined.
Yeah.
You know, this even down to some of the old big bands. The first time they went over there, a lot of them were supporting. You know, and I think it's mainly because America, in particular, and Canada, got the feedback from the American, from the English press and television shows that they saw over in America of this kind of new, kind of weirdish kind of band happening in the charts in the UK, and wanted part of it.
Well, what I was going to say is that because Saturday Night Live done you so well, but unfortunately because the venues were already booked, and all sold out, isn't it a shame to a degree that had they not been booked, or Saturday Night had been done earlier, you would have been playing in huge venues?
Yes, possibly. I mean, you must remember that it wasn't actually passed over at that point, but Saturday Night Live was still, I would say, one of the biggest shows across the States. And what we tend to forget, Canada could pick up most of it as well. And that was one of the, I can remember the event of actually being in the studios and having a quick rehearsal and talking to some bod in the studio, and I was saying, well, I've heard about this show in the UK. We've heard about your show, and it's one of the biggest shows across America. And some of the stars you've had on, and some of the stars that it's actually been broken into major fame by being on your show. You know, comedians and things like that. You know, and he said, and he said we've been going for about, I think by that time they've been going for about 2-3 years, and one of the mega shows in the States. And he said, like for tonight when you're on, we'd scared the hell out of everybody, you know, and amazingly we had to block it out. He said our average viewing across the States and Canada is around about the 50 million.
I know.
And we went, right, at that time was possibly the whole population of the UK. He wanted to do it that way, you know. And he said that's on an average Saturday. I was like, oh my God. and he said that virtually in full view of everybody, and we all sort of gulped and swallowed at the same time, like,
I know, Chris.
We're on a show that's live. We're going to be playing live, and it's been going to go virtually across America from New York right through to the west coast of LA, and be seen across America and including Canada. So,
no pressure.
It was sort of like, no nerves then. Right, just to go out and do it.
But have you actually got round to watching that one I sent you with that?
In fact, no, I haven't.
Oh, you should watch it.
Busy. I've got all those discs ready to go on, and at some point I'm going to be able to sit down for a long time and watch all of them.
Oh, you should
But
watch.
at the moment, as I just said, with 3 bands at the moment, this week I'm rehearsing 3 bands.
Oh God.
Yeah, all leading up to various gigs that's coming up in the future.
Yeah.
And it's like, and there's, one band that's got an awful lot of interest from a producer who apparently has been sending out scouts.
Oh, right.
Yeah, like a football club.
Yeah, they do.
Anyway, and the producer's come back to us, and he wants us to come and meet up, and he wants us to play his music at home. And so there's just so much happening at the moment.
I know.
In some cases, I don't know where I'm coming or going, but there you go. And because I'm the catalyst in most of these things, and in most of the license agents are on all the PA and everything as well.
Yeah.
And I have the van. So at times I find myself out not only doing everything, but organising everything and running around. Oh God! But there you go. That's life.
Well, it's in your blood, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. So anyway, you said in your email that you've been speaking to the old reprobate.
Yeah.
Bloody Chris Payne and bloody old Russell Bell.
I spoke to Chris Monday or Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And I spoke to Russell very briefly. He was then flying off, and I was then flying off. So we had a very quick chat the other Saturday or a couple of weeks ago. Basically, unfortunately, when I spoke to you last, I had my recorder set on the wrong button.
Yeah, Saturday. Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah, it would have been okay if we'd got you all the time, but we just got me. So
it's a bit of a shame. So you were putting in the questions, and there was no answer coming out. Well, fair enough.
It didn't make a lot of sense, really. A lot of pauses.
Yeah.
But which I was
so what did the old boys have to say? The old bastards.
Well, Chris and Russell, we were going over the English press again.
Yeah.
Which I spoke to you last time about, which I haven't got now.
Oh, right, yeah.
So if we could just do that.
Right, fair enough. What did those old boys have to say? Did you say you were in contact with me as well?
Yeah. I mean, they're absolutely great. I mean, yeah, I spoke to Russell there the other week. I said I spoke to yourself.
Yeah.
And I said, what a fantastic guy. And Russell was saying, oh, yes, he's brilliant. He said, love the guy. He said, absolutely fantastic.
You did tell him I'm going to be getting in touch with all of those bastards.
Well,
that would scare the hell out of them.
Well, yeah.
And it's purely because I actually emailed him, because I mean I'm still looking around and trying to get some advice from people in record companies, kind of thing, So I shall follow up with a reply to him. Because it was nice of him to reply to me, and it was really quite a nice email. I mean, he's always been a really nice guy, and to get a nice email back like that was fantastic.
Yeah.
But he'd been on vacation as well, so so he'd been out of the country. So he apologized for not answering me so quickly. But it's nice, so I can follow up on that score. So, but he did mention that he's putting together the press principle for September sometime.
It's September the 23rd or 1st. It's whichever night you play Glasgow Apollo. It's out.
Oh, right. Bloody hell.
But it's mostly all. Well, you got the pleasure principle, then you got the free range demos.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Which
because I know he said an extended version.
Yeah.
That's what he's put in my email. And he said, obviously, he'd like my address so he can post me one as soon as possible.
Yeah, sure.
Which would be fantastic, obviously. But obviously, I need to get in touch with him as well because I need some advice from him.
Well, I gave you his phone number, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, just ring him up.
I shall do that. I most probably will email him firstly as a reply to his, which is about just over a week now since he sent me his email. Because I like to give people a bit of time, so it doesn't seem like you're sort of pressurizing people.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I need some information. I hope to send him an album of Tinderfish, and hope that he can give me some advice with his expertise, you know.
I must admit, I'm enjoying your Tinderfish album.
Are you still playing it?
I've got it in my car, and I listen to it often when I'm driving to work in the morning and in the evening. I love that. Do you know, the problem is I think the track list is on the actual CD, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so it's in there, so I'm not really too sure what the track list is. But I must pull it out and have a look. But there's 2 or 3 sort of ballady ones on there.
Yeah.
And I'm really enjoying them.
Good. I'm glad of that. Yeah, good.
Well,
I mean, at times, I think the album, if you know the history of it, you know, because of this film at the moment, it's still going through various processes at the moment, and it might still actually happen. This film, which will surprise me as much as it will surprise everybody else. But I mean, as you know, to try and get a record deal is amazing enough, but to try and get a film made, yes, is even, you know.
Well, I think you need to talk to Russell then.
Russell Bell.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
He's all involved with this sort of thing nowadays.
Film will. Oh, right. I'm going to be ringing that boy soon, you know, and have a word, and maybe send him an album and let him know. I mean, that's one of the reasons why it all started, because of this film about a fictitious situation of Bob Dylan, a young Bob Dylan, coming over to this country, first touring. And a process of that is a kind of fictitious story. And at the moment, apparently, the last thing I heard is one film studio's English backup film studios, you know, financially backing, said I'd sent the writers back to rewrite some of it. And they've come back with a rewrite, and they said, "Well, thanks for coming back. That looks good. We'll go through it, and there's still a possibility that something could happen with it." Well,
you never know, do you?
Yeah, and then some of our music might be used on that.
Hey,
you know?
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah. I mean, we're talking, major kind of distribution stuff. Maybe not as much as a big American bloody, full-blown production job, but. You know, you never know. You never know.
Well, you don't know. I mean, to be honest, I've sent a few emails out this week. David Bowie being one.
Yeah.
Because I know Bowie, and funny enough, I was talking to Chris Payne about this, and he didn't seem to realise. And I was saying, like, you guys were the biggest thing for about 2 years in the whole world.
Yeah,
And Chris Payne was like, no, we're just a group of young boys having a laugh, you know, going around the world getting pissed and, you know, and all this sort of stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
And I'm saying, well, yeah, but you were still the biggest thing in the world.
Oh, yeah. We did that. We went around the world getting pissed. We did do that. But at the same token, at that point in time, you know, with virtually 2 number ones, two number one albums, you know, and it did go around the world. So at one point we were one of the biggest things around. You know,
you were, and you know, and I know Bowie has actually said that at one point.
Yeah,
and he's a real elusive guy to get hold of. But I managed to find his manager in the end. Yeah. Sent them a mail, but they did say that, well, look, he hasn't really done an interview for about 5 or 6 years now. So don't hold your breath, but. You know, I'll ask him and get back to you. Yeah. So you just never know, do you?
Absolutely. And these things you got to try. You know.
Well, of course. I mean, if someone
don't lose any sleep about it.
Oh no, I don't.
But at least give it a try, because you never know what will happen.
Well, like I said, we've definitely got Trent Reznor, so he's colossal in America, so I'm told. Yeah. I'm assuming that's true.
Yeah.
So. I know the book on its own will sell probably quite well in America.
Yeah,
mainly because he's in there. Yeah. And what I said.
Who's that again? Who's that?
Trent Reznor from 9 Inch Nails.
Oh, right, yeah.
I mean, I've never listened. I know nothing of them, but I'm told. Yeah. In fact, Gary was on stage with them the other day, wasn't he? Done Cars in Wembley in front of 80,000 people or something. So
right.
I think that made Gary's knees shake a little bit, but
just a little bit. Yeah. but brilliant. Yeah.
Well, as I said to Chris, the idea is I'm going to do just and I said this to Russell as well on the other day, is at the end of the book, I just want to do a couple of pages on what you're all up to nowadays.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about putting anyone else what they're up to nowadays, be even Billy Curry or Andy McCluskey or anyone.
Yeah.
Just what you three are up to, because the book really is based around you three.
Yeah. Because really, I mean, in some ways, it was really. Yeah. I mean, so like all the other guys that followed on afterwards, you know. I mean, I can sit back and say, well, yeah, but you followed on from where we left talking.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
We were the guys at the pinnacle.
Oh, Christ, yeah.
You know, and the only one, sadly, that isn't is Paul.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You know, but other than that, it was Chris Brain, Russell Bell, and myself, and obviously Paul.
Yeah.
You know, we were there when it all kicked off. We were there, and we did all the kicking off. We were, you know, we did it there for those 2 years or so. We were the boys with Gary.
Well,
you know,
I think what people, well, I say people, maybe yourselves don't realise is, as fans, we came to see the band.
Yeah.
It wasn't just Gary Numan. I mean, if say you weren't there, I mean, everyone knows that you weren't there at the Year of the Child.
Yeah.
And you know, and I mean, you told me the reasons why, and I think that's brilliant. You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's
and I've had loads of people sort of ask me, well, where was he then?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm saying, well, you have to wait for the book.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's exactly right, and that's very true, and that's down to exactly. And you ask any of them, they'll verify all
Oh,
of
yeah.
that.
No, I mean, the reasons I've heard over the years why you weren't there is unbelievable. You know, I mean, to just like, oh, you know, it was Wembley, let Jess have a go, you know, and
No.
You told me, and it's
and that was my union. Unbelievable. It's supposed to be working for me, and they penalised me so heavily. And they were threatening to penalise everybody.
Yeah, I know.
You know, including the audience, the television, all the other artists. They threatened everybody because of me. I thought, what are you boys about? You know, but anyway, there you go.
But what do you think? I mean, going back to the 79 sort of era, the 80 era, when, I mean, after Tubeway Army itself became number one, there was several million sort of synth bands appeared.
Mm-hmm.
Some good and some not so good.
Yeah.
But the Numan band itself always had a sound, especially live, which I always thought outshone anyone.
Yeah.
Would you have any reason why you think that happened?
Well, I think it's mainly because of the makeup and the instrumentation at that point. You know, I don't think it was anybody else that basically used the amount of keyboards on stage that we did, and produced this kind of I don't know what it is, this mountain of sound. You know, from so many keyboards being used simultaneously, and in some cases all playing the same thing, with a bass guitar at times and a guitar, and obviously then the drums on top of it. You know, and it had in some ways a unique sound because nobody else was doing it. Nobody else was creating that sort of mega kind of huge mountain of sound. In a kind of pop vein as well. You know, with the image and the lights and everything, we were doing what, I suppose, Take That and various other people are doing now. But we were doing it then with this slightly different music to what everybody else was playing, and with a sound that went with it.
Well, yes, for sure. I mean, because from being number one, which would have been June time, was it June, July, something?
Yeah, something like that.
You were then straight on tour in September, which was this massive tour, wasn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah.
With a massive stage set Yeah. But going...
see, also, what people tend to forget, because we just basically come out, or were submerging our music and culture in this country from the punk and new wave situation. All right, and the punk and new wave basically did away with all those old big production bands. You know, they overtook the world and said all that big band stuff. You know, your Pink Floyd and your Yes and Genesis and Rolling Stones, big shows. You know, were not the thing. You want to bring it down to basics. You spit at each other, and you you run around stage with broken instruments. And,
I remember.
With torn jeans and ripped T-shirts. And, studs and things like that. And you spit at everybody. And
I never did understand that. I never did understand that.
That actually is one of the few things that almost got to the point where it made me feel quite ill.
Yeah.
I was disgusted. When I saw bands and people was actually spitting
his
lead singer's mouth while he was standing there with his mother. No, that was not for me. Thank you.
well, I remember seeing Bauhaus in about 1981ish, I think. And as you say, everyone jumping up and down, spitting for some unknown reason. Yeah. And I remember Pete Murphy stopping it and sort of said, "Look, can you just stop this? It's disgusting. Just stop it."
Yeah.
And they then carried on. Someone jumped up again and then spat again. He just launched himself into the crowd and beat the shit out of this guy.
And so he should have done.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I would have done. If someone was speaking like that at me,
I know.
Beat the crap out of him.
Yeah, it was just sort of, like I said, I never could understand what that was meant to be all about. But
no, I mean that whole punk thing. I mean, I could understand in some ways where we're coming from, but a kind of breaking of the old traditional big bands, because I mean they were actually in some ways knocking some of the mega bands. They came from this country that ruled the world in some cases. From your Pink Floyds, your Led Zeppelins, your Deep Purple, all those mega bands. They were the biggest things in the world.
They were at the time, yeah.
Yeah, and when they went around, they were putting on big shows, and the whole punk thing was saying, "Bugger that! We don't do that. We do the kind of least kind of musical kind of value that you can think of, and we dress and we do everything to go with that."
Yeah. It was all a bit wrong, though, I think. Well,
yeah, I'm afraid. I could accept some of it, but the spitting and all the other stuff, no.
There was about 2 or 3 Sex Pistols songs I quite enjoyed.
Yeah.
There was a few others from other bands which I can't really rightly remember, but I seem to recall there was a terrible amount of horrendous music going on. I mean, it was
some of it was so awful.
Oh yeah.
It was actually awful for awful sake.
Yeah.
It was actually knocking the establishment, which they were all about.
Well, I don't know. I think a lot of them really just was in it for the money, but they really were doing it really bad.
Yeah, I mean, it made, in some ways, it made a mockery of it. But it was a culture that survives and still survives today. Like any kind of any kind of music, any kind of cultural change within our history, made an impression, and in some ways still lives today.
Yeah, it does. It's just there was a lot of awfulness about it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, similarly to our stuff, we made a cultural kind of impact at the time, with a few other bands that were around, your Tangerine Dream, your Dream, your Ultravox, various types of bands like that. We all made a kind of contribution to our history and our cultural music.
But I think with Gary and yourselves, there was the image, the sound, and the lights, which made the whole package really.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
and we kicked that off back into place.
Yeah.
You know, because at that point, you know, all those big bands have been kicked into touch by the punk and the new wave thing. they didn't want to have anything to do with that kind of big shows. And there was this band, you know, Tuba Army, or Gary Numan and Tuba Army, doing the opposite, you know, producing these big shows, these big light extravaganzas, you know, with big sound, and obviously playing the big concert halls around the country and here and abroad, you know. And I think, I suppose, there were some people that rebelled against it, but we were there, you know, we were doing it, and then various other bands followed on from then, you know.
You know, I've never known what category to put Gary into at that time.
No,
because you know, they weren't punk, weren't new romantics.
No,
I've never known where to put him.
No, I mean, it was like it was actually in between. It was like a revising of the Big Show band, with the big light stage production job, but following after the punk and the new wave thing, but not going into the new romantics, because it wasn't actually musically a new romantics kind of feel. So it was there's a few bands, I mean, one or two that I've just mentioned, that were in that kind of, and it wasn't quite one thing or the other. It was doing something new, something maybe a little bit more mechanical, machine-like music, but it was right in between various major strains of music.
There's no category to put it into, I don't think. Well,
no,
I can't think of one, to be honest.
No,
it's very much, Ultravox were probably on the same lines. When John Fox was with them, maybe even Majura, I don't know.
Majura came in afterwards, and then I think that's when they really went. In a way, it was following Gary's footsteps and doing it more commercially. You know, Gary was the first one to actually do that type of thing. You know, with taking some of the kind of new wave feel into it, and the kind of electronic feel into it, and in some cases, some of the rock feel. You know, into a melting pot. And came out with something that was not only different to what anybody else is doing, but also put it in a vein of mainstream pop.
Yeah. I mean, how did it feel? I mean, because you would have joined Gary very early, 79?
Yeah.
So Replicas was done.
Yeah.
You then would have started recording the Pleasure Principle.
Yeah.
Now, bearing in mind, Gary or Tuba Army or anything hasn't even had a #1 at this point. When Pleasure Principle is being recorded, Gary is still an unknown.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you were recording the Pleasure Principle, I mean, was there a sort of feeling? I mean, how did you feel? Did you feel like this was going to be something, or?
No, not at all. I mean, I suppose in a way, I more so than anybody else at that point in the band, in Gary, with Gary Numan and band and that, had actually had exposure with another band that had relatively success. You know, I'd been on Yo Grey Whistle Test, an album produced by Bob Harris. I was in this band called with my local guys that I grew up with, and I was a founder member of a band called Druid at that time. So we actually went abroad, we toured the UK, and we've been on television, and we produced 2 albums. So, and Gary hadn't done anything like that. Obviously, Paul hadn't. Chris and myself joined Tuba Army on the very same day. I met
Right.
I met Chris Payne on the very same day doing an audition.
Yeah.
You know, so I suppose apart from Gary and Paul, Chris Payne and myself were like the first two people to actually start playing with Gary in a kind of band situation. You know, because at that point it was his uncle Jess that did some of this album with him, or played on the album with him as a drummer, and it was Gary and Paul. That was it. That was it. You know, and the whole combination of what was supposed to be happening was they'd had this album out. They managed to get in, apparently, by a lot of work by Paul with this record company called Beggars Banquet. All right. And apparently it was actually Paul that hawked around a lot of the stuff and did a lot of footwork.
It was, yeah.
And this record company said, yes, we'll do this album. We're going to put this album out. What we want now is form a band. And you guys are going to, once you've got this band, a two-way army is going to go out and support bigger bands to promote this album.
Yeah.
And that's when Chris and myself got involved. And I found this out by, I think there was an ad in the paper. I can't remember. And word of mouth, because I was auditioning with various bands in London at the time. And I turned up with this guy, and they said this band, I can't remember, Acton, somewhere in London, Acton, said this is band auditioning, and I said, right, I'll phone up, put my name down. And I turned up there and waited for another couple of drummers to do their bit. Met this funny bloke, wanted to be Cornish and wanted to be French, and came from Brighton. Yeah. And I thought, this is a strange boy. He plays keyboards. and that was young Chris Payne.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we went in there and showed them how it needed to be done.
Yeah.
if you see what I mean. No, it's unfortunate, really, because the drummer in front of me, it was a bit naughty, really, because they invited me into the studio.
Right.
While this poor guy was trying to audition with Gary and Paul. I mean, he just didn't have a clue, really. And unfortunately, he kept asking him to slow the songs down because he couldn't keep up. And I mean, it was a bit naughty getting me in there to watch this poor guy struggle away. But anyway, and then Chris and myself got in there and we just started playing and we said, right, there you are, you boys. And they said, all right. And I got the phone call before I even got up the next morning. You know.
Oh, brilliant!
Look, can you start tomorrow? Type thing.
Yeah.
And apparently Chris Payne did as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember that quite distinctly, obviously, because it's quite major parts of what happened.
For sure. But when you were actually recording your Pleasure Principle, did you ever foresee that being a hit?
Well, the thing, like my personal experience was driving home, you know, and I've been auditioning up in London. I've done one or two bands, and I've done this band called Two-Way Army, you know, and I thought, well, yeah, hey, you know, this stuff is interesting, you know. It didn't sort of blow my socks off at the time, you know, but I thought, well, it's different, you know, it's interesting. And I'm driving home, and some DJ late at night said, and I have this new album from a new record company or something else on the Beggars Banquet, and Two-Way Army, and he played a track. I couldn't believe it. You know, I thought, what? You know, you know, and it was quite stunning, you know, to hear this new album by virtually a record company I've never heard of.
Yeah.
And I've just been auditioning and just met this guy called Gary and this guy called Paul, you know, and I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was Martin or Steve was there. I can't remember who the other guy.
I think Martin was mostly in charge, but I
somebody ushering people in and people out, something, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, well, that's amazing, you know. But again, still, you know, it was quite surprising to hear it on the radio. As I just told you, I'd been in a band before that's done television, you know, and we'd been on the radio, and I'd been touring around and all that. So really, yeah, it was interesting and surprising, but nothing sort of much more than that. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But then getting the phone call the next morning, and I auditioned with some pretty awful bands, and some bands, you know, basically I would have got the job, but it's just the way I bloody dressed. You know, I wasn't all in leather and studs around my neck. That's why I didn't get the job. Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. You know. And there was this record company bought on the phone next morning saying, look, we like what you were doing. Can you start? Because we're thinking of putting this band together as quickly as possible because we could go out and tour, supporting bigger bands and all. And I said, yeah, put my name down for that, but I'd do that.
Oh, brilliant.
And of course, Chris did exactly the same. And we started rehearsing. And next minute, it was sort of like, you know, there's slightly more interest coming from radio. You know, the next minute there was the record company saying, look, you know, start recording some other stuff, you know. So we started recording that, and the next minute there was the same people that I'd worked with previously with the other band saying, would you like to do an Ogre whistle test? Yeah. And that was the big bang. That was the one that kicked everything into perspective. Because, I don't know, you must know the whole story on that scene.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we did the Algo Whistle test, and it just so happened that one of the producers of Top of the Pops was walking by and had a look in and said, I want some of that on my Top of the Pops.
Yep.
Yeah. And the rest is history, basically.
Well, yes, unfortunately, I remember, well, I say unfortunately, fortunately, I remember watching it.
Yeah, right, there you go.
But how did you feel with, I mean, did you know Billy Currie? Well, know of Billy Currie at the time?
Vaguely, yeah. I'd heard of this band and heard they were doing something kind of similar, and I think it was either Gary or something who played with some albums or early stuff that they'd done, you know. And I thought, oh, yeah, fine, you know. And then met up with this guy called Billy Currie, keyboard player, and played, Chris played viola. He played violin, you know, and not only that, he had a unique sound of his keyboard playing.
Yeah.
You know. And that was the thing that really caught us out, you know. Not only Billy Currie, who could drink us all silly under the table if he wanted to, and act like a complete and utter hooligan, but he was able to. We had, I don't know if you can remember, or were you into any instruments that were played at the time?
Oh, well, I know he had his Odyssey, didn't he?
Yeah, the Odyssey, ARP Odyssey, and he was actually magnificent with that. And this bloody keyboard was an animal. It really was an animal to try and play, to try and master, and try and get the kind of feel and sound out of it. And this boy was bloody good at it. He really was. He could make this thing bloody scream at you.
I know he could, yeah.
You know, and then he could obviously pick up the violin and play some notes on there as well, you know. So him and Chris together, I thought, oh my God, I'll go join the youth orchestra somewhere. You know? So it was good, you know, and meeting him, and we had lots of fun together. And of course, then we went in and did Fade to Grey.
You did, yeah.
Yeah. And the only reason my name isn't particular on that, which is a bit of a sore point still even today, you know. I did that mainly because I was at that time still signed to EMI.
Right.
And I didn't want anything to do with that because just because of my previous band, which was the band Druid. And they basically want to claim some royalties on it, and I didn't want that, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why, because there was only the three of us that went into the studio and recorded that. It was Chris Braden, Billy Curry, and myself.
I know. Chris was telling me, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's purely the reason why I didn't, you know, because really my name should have been on there, but hey, there you go.
Well,
that's history.
Well, it is, but it'll be in a book now.
No.
Right, so there you go.
Yeah.
We can set the record straight on that one.
Yeah, so there you go. So that's why my name isn't prominent on that recording, because it was the three of us that went into that virtually brand new studios that they were building down in Reading somewhere.
Yeah.
And we recorded that. We put it together. Obviously, Chris, you know, being fancy free with his French, wanted, you know, French. You know, we got this girl down from record company talking French and all that kind of bollocks, you know. And then the next minute, you know, it's a piece of music. We've done it. We finished it off. As far as we were concerned, you know, something to think about after we finish touring and all that sort of thing, you know. And we go away touring. I think we're in the States or something like that. And suddenly we hear this news that this particular song has been picked up and put on an album.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, without I have any say in it whatsoever.
Yeah, that's,
you know,
doesn't sound right, does it?
Everyone?
Doesn't sound right to be able to do that.
It was amazing, really. I mean, at that point in time, I mean, we couldn't even sort of think about it too much because we were busy touring. I think we were in the States or something.
Yeah.
You know, so you couldn't sort of even raise any kind of objections or try to work any kind of situation out or who was involved. And it was none of that. You know, the next minute it was out on this album and taken back into the studio, and a couple of people that we heard of, Steve Strange and Rusty Egan and this guy called Midge, had done a little bit of extra work on it and produced it. Midge had produced it, and it's out.
I never liked that Steve Strange look, to be honest.
Yeah,
the Fade to Grey video. I think because the way yourselves and Gary done your videos, that whole new romantic thing was just too. No, it didn't work for me. I like the song.
A lot of people, I mean, the whole country, in some way, case the world, sort of turned on to that sort of thing. It was like one of the next steps, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, and even we did as the Martyrs to a certain extent.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
You know, well, and it was just the next phase, the next new musical input and visual input. You know, and for some people, it made their day. You know, and other people, it wasn't.
Well, I enjoyed the music as such. I just couldn't quite. The visual wasn't the same with Duran Duran.
Spandau Ballet at that point was the biggest thing. You know, in that genre. If you want to think it that way, you know, and obviously a few others that were around, and I mean, just another phase that this country produced, you know, that took over the world in a way, you know.
Maybe that's where Gary went slightly wrong. Should have grown a big quiff and wear baggy trousers or something. I don't know.
Yeah. A long dreadlocks, and it would have been all right.
Maybe that's what he should have done, and
exactly.
Everyone would have been happy. I don't know, but
no, but there you go. I mean, everything had moved on, and Gary had moved somewhere else, and also, I mean, obviously, he always had said to the band, you know, I'm in it for the short haul, you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, you know, make my millions and be a star, and then I'm going to do my flying, and I'm stop it all. I'm gonna retire, and I'm gonna retire right at the top, and that's it, you know. And I mean, I think all of us sort of, you know, we sort of, fair enough. We accepted what he was saying, and in some ways also, you know, took it as, you know, with a pinch of salt, because, I mean, people talk like that, and sometimes it doesn't particularly happen, you know. And then, it really did. He said, right, we're going to do the goodbye concert, and I've had enough from doing it, and I'm offline, and thank you very much. And we said, well, thank you very much. Right, we've got to think of what we're going to do,
Yeah.
Thus Dramatis formed, that was one of the main reasons, in a way. And Gary went off in his single prop plane around the world with a big gallon of petrol on top or something,
And planning his assassin tour.
Yeah, I mean, and that, I think basically everybody knew, that he wasn't going to be able to knock it on the head just like that,
No.
Yeah, all right, go around, get on your plane, and a plane with this big one big fuel tank, and then fly around the world and get shot at and marched off in India and things like that,
But he did.
But but at the end of the day, it's going to be a bit more difficult than that, just to give it all up completely,
I think maybe Gary's best bet would have been. I mean, you can talk. I mean, as I have done, you can talk about this forever. But his best bet would have been just to have done the telly tour, done 3 or 4 nights at Wembley, and just had a break for a little while.
Exactly.
Without
and not make this big, the kind of big exposure that he's retired, and this is the last gig and all that type of thing,
Yeah.
As we all know within the music business, if you're not around, seen, heard, doing things, in a matter of weeks, you're forgotten.
For sure.
You're done, let alone months or years, you're gone,
Well, this is it. I mean, it's quite amazing Gary's still going in a way.
Exactly.
I mean, give him his credit, and I'll give him his due for it. I mean, and I suppose I'm.
I mean, even if you think about the really big guys, your Rolling Stones, your whoever else is around, they're still doing it. David Bowie, Elton John. I mean, these people have done it, and they've done it for years and years, and they've created themselves as the biggest stars in the world.
That's right, yeah.
That's why they can still just come back and go anywhere in the world and sell out. From 3,000 to 20,000 people, or 100,000 people, and those people will turn up.
Yep.
And they can produce an album, a single, or whatever, and you can guarantee a few million will go out and buy it.
Yeah.
But I mean, Gary didn't do that. He retired after a couple of years or so.
Well, yeah, he did retire on the top, I think. But But
not to the degree of your Elton Johns.
No, for sure, because they've been going for so long.
No, because they've done it for about 20 years before they decided.
Well, this is it.
Break,
This is it. I mean, you can be that big that you can get away with it. Gary was big, but unfortunately, no, he wasn't that big. That
no.
Plus,
I mean, it's horses for courses, though.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, and at the moment, if he's still happy with what he's got and what he's doing, it makes it worth it. The guy's got a living out of it. He can go out and tour once a year, twice a year or something, make his few bucks. He can produce an album a year.
Well, every 5 years at the moment, but
there's a few fans out there who will go out and buy it and still keep him kicking over. So, well, good on him.
Well, it is good on him. I'm not. To be honest, I'm not a lover of the new stuff. It's
no. I mean, I've heard some of the stuff, and well, I don't know.
It's hard work.
It doesn't knock my socks off anyway.
No. I mean, like I said to Chris the other night, like with the pledge principle and things like that, it's to me as a fan listening, it's the simplicity of it, but the genius of the way it's been put together.
Absolutely, yeah.
Where today, like back going to Pledge Principle, you might have had an 8 or 16 track recorder, and if someone said, "Look, I've got this awesome sound," and you might say, "Well, well, how awesome, because it's got to be that good, because we're going to have to lose a different one.
Yeah.
Where now you can sort of say, well, look, let's have 5094 cymbal sound or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's where sometimes people lose it, because I enjoy the simplicity of things.
Exactly. And that's what Gary was doing at that time, you know. And I think we all responded to that, you know. And simplicity, but you could make it attractive. You could make it big. You could make it really aggressive if you wanted to. You could do all sorts of things with it without being so technical in a way, which was what's happening nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, when I say simplicity, I mean I didn't mean it in any way anyone was doing anything simple. No, I mean, you take something like films, where you get a couple of moogs come in, or you get one, then you get a couple come in, and then you get this awesome drum beat come in, and it's like, bloody hell, you know. And to me, you know, there's some tracks which are more powerful on an album than live. Yeah. And I still think films, and you'll probably disagree, but I think the studio version is more powerful than the live version.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I've not compared the two for many years.
No, but you know what I mean? It's just the way the drums come in, and for a electronical sort of album, it's just these drums, they come in and you think, bloody hell, you know, there's something about that.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, sometimes, you know, it's also a case of at the time is how you know, when you're in the studio, how the session comes together, how you feel when you're doing it at the time, and also, you know, everybody's opinion at the time, you know, and a lot of the time, you know, Gary would play a riff or something, and we'd almost compose a song while we're there in the studio.
Yeah.
And it's almost like what happened on the day, you know. It's how everybody felt on the day. It's the essence of playing a piece of music and sitting down there, as to even when you come in, or what you do to come in your part of the song, and how you interpret the song and the piece of music that's in front of you while you're playing, you know. And sometimes that can really set a mood and a particular sound and feel to a piece of music that is really can be at times very devastating, you know. And sometimes listening to that piece of music, that will get across to whoever's listening to it.
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I think Complex at Wembley.
Yeah.
When the drums come in on that, are just you know, just awesome. It suddenly comes in and sort of shoots across the whole of Wembley, and everyone's shaking, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it is nice, and you know, some of those songs that we did, like Complex, you know, this is the time where we actually had Chris playing on viola, and a kind of almost an airy kind of feel that we a mood that we tried to create with it, and in some ways, you know, it came across, and I mean, I was actually surprised that it came out so kind of almost mesmerizing in a way.
It did, yeah.
You know, and how it actually got into the charts, and it got up to number 4.
Yeah, three, I think. Isn't it?
Yeah. And I thought, what? You know, this is like a track that's really out there. You know.
Well, there's always been the big discussion whether it should have been Complex or Metal. So, but we'll never know, will we?
Yeah, I never know. But I mean, it was truly a song that sort of stuck out, and the way that we played it, and the feel of it, the depth of it.
Yeah.
was sort of like how we were doing it in the studio and how we felt about it, and it became, I would say one of personally my sort of like favourite little things, you know.
It stands a test of time because it still sounds as good today as it did 30 years ago.
I'm glad that I haven't heard it for years.
Oh well,
I'm glad about that. Yeah.
No, it does. I listen to it quite often actually, and it still an awesome track, really.
Yeah, good.
But Ced, I'm going to have to run.